Welcome back. The 13th session of the Cairo Climate Talks was held recently, and this time it was dedicated to discussions on how climate change impacts Egypt's water resources or supplies and demand, and how the implications can be addressed. And as usual, when we talk about this issue, we have the pleasure to be joined by Dr. Martin Bergfelder, the head of the Science Department at the German Embassy. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
First of all, sir, we would like to know more about the initiative of the Cairo Climate Talks, about who is organizing the sessions, more about the whole issue.
What we are doing is we are meeting every month since end of 2011. It's the German Embassy involved in this. It's the Egyptian Ministry of Environment, the German Academic Exchange Service, and also the German GIZ Development Cooperation Agency. Once a month we are tackling a topic related to climate change and sustainable development. We are doing technical workshops amongst experts, but the most important thing is that we are discussing with the public and trying to raise awareness on these issues, trying to Egyptians and Germans together in order to start new cooperations and to find ways how we can improve not only the situation in Egypt, but also how we can work together on the international level.
Okay, before going into the details of the 13th session, regarding the outcome of each of the past sessions, do you come out with recommendations that need to be implemented, and then you look for funding for the implementation of such recommendations, or how do you deal with the outcome of each session?
And sometimes there are concrete recommendations coming out of this. But the main idea is really to have, to have an open discussion without formalized outcome, which helps people to express their opinions more freely. We have several times we are able to connect, for example, German scientists with Egyptian counterparts to start new research projects, or we can start new cooperations from government to government. But basically, Cairo Climate Talks is complementing work that is already going on. So, for example, in the water sector, there's a huge cooperation between Germany and Egypt when it comes to development cooperation. So GIZ, KfW, the German agencies, they are all here and they are doing projects in like a scale of millions of Egyptian pounds. So we can add some time to this, but the main goal is not to start real big projects after it, but rather to bring people together and facilitate new cooperations. And what I think is one of the very successful things is to help NGOs and the government to interact, because we are seeing a lot of young people coming, a lot of NGOs coming, and they like to ask and challenge the officials also. So the officials come to our Cairo Climate Talks and they speak quite open, and they are willing to discuss with the people and listen to their problems and go beyond the usual government speak at the conference where you give your statement and then you walk away and that's it. So I think this is one of the very positive things and also things that I can see on the positive side that are changing in this country. So that more and more, there is a discussion in the public, and it is possible also to be very critical, even if sometimes maybe the facts are not wrong, not right. The ministry person might be the better expert and know the issue much better, but still they are willing to deal with people who are engaged and you want to change something, and this is something very positive. So we manage also to allow younger people to connect to the Egyptian ministries and the officials for further work afterwards and to improve their work.
As you mentioned, you met or you meet usually every month, and you select something regarding a topic related to the climate change and you discuss it. Can you tell us briefly about the 12 topics, for example, before we talk about this time, the 12 topics that were tackled during the panels or the sessions?
Yes, we have been working on renewable energy. For example, how can you install more renewable capacity in Egypt? What are the barriers and what the incentives? We have discussed about agriculture, how climate. We have discussed about international politics, the climate change conferences. We have discussed about practical projects in Egypt to
International
save
politics that affect...
international politics, like the climate conferences that are held
okay.
every year. This last year in Doha and the year before in Durban in South Africa. So these are the big international conferences where this issue is dealt with. So that's also things we have tackled. We have been working on very concrete things such as education in schools. How can, you know, how can students in schools
and out
learn
of these
this?
meetings, I mean, the past 12 sessions,
Yes.
how was it? I mean, the recommendations, just as you were talking right now, any recommendations, any results that took place since you started?
Yes, we have out of, I think the very practical, or the most practical was the one we did on education in schools. And after this we managed to start projects at the selected schools, at 15 schools that are do now recycling projects. So the kids are separating the waste. There's an NGO that's taking the waste. It's recycling it, making money out of it, supporting poor families, and more and more schools are catching up with this. And we have convinced Siemens to donate some teaching material for schools. So we are doing little projects on awareness in schools. This has been something very concrete. Sometimes when we bring people from Germany, experts here, afterwards some ministries from the Egyptian side come and say, this is a great guy, you know, can this guy please come again and sit with us longer, and so we can work on issues that we need. I don't want to be too technical, but there are some, in some areas, the German people who have come here afterwards started new projects together with Egyptian counterparts in order to you know, to give their knowledge also. Practical research projects, new university corporations that come up in areas such as renewables or water or agriculture, because they're very different people there. So we try not to, you know, we try not to be an international political conference. This is the problem in the climate negotiations, for example. It's all about the negotiated text, and we will not, I'm not negotiating any text there. I want to have a free interaction and discussion and be complementary to other things that are happening.
Dr. Bergfelder, you hold the Cairo climate talks every month, as far as I understand. Why did it take you so long to talk about water resources here in Egypt, despite the fact that it is a hot issue? It is one of the priorities on any government's agenda when we talk about water resources.
This time there was a good opportunity to do this now, because we just had before 3 days of workshop of like 15 universities from Germany and Egypt that were sitting together here in Cairo on water issues, and they were there anyhow, so we could benefit from this and save money for travel costs and bring these experts to our conference. Sometimes it depends also on people who are already in town, so I try to make sure, of course, respect the international calendar, what's coming up, but also to see which people are available. And clearly water has been popping up as an issue in all the other sessions also. If you talk about agriculture, you cannot talk about, you cannot neglect the water issue. So it has been always there kind of in the background, but this time we really focused only on water.
I don't know, but sometimes I feel that renewable energy and agriculture and water, maybe these are the main three or the top 3 issues to be discussed. But first let me ask you about the Water Institute of the Nile. Tell us more about it. And
the Water Institute about the Nile. Unfortunately, the lady who is supposed to be here with us, she cannot make it.
But you can give us an idea about it.
I think that's an institute or an NGO that is working on bringing together local people, NGOs from all the countries that are based next to the Nile. So it's about Ethiopia, Sudan,
So Nile Basin
Sudan,
countries in general.
Nile Basin countries, and trying to, you know, this is a very difficult issue, shares of water, and they try to contribute from the local side also to foster
But they attend with
cooperation.
you the conference, the session, right?
Yes. There was a lady there, and she was speaking about their efforts, and also to go to the people who really live next to the Nile and try to understand what they have as ingenious solutions to adapt to climate change, and trying to bring this local knowledge to policymakers.
Okay, Dr. Bergfelder, let's go specific, talking about the panel that was held recently. It was held under the title Growing Thirst, Sustainable Water Solutions for Egypt. What were the main recommendations that the session came out with?
I mean, water is a very important issue for Egypt. That is clear. You have limited water resources. You have a growing population. This is, I mean, the main problem. The water is difficult to make the pie bigger. Most of the water just comes from the Nile, and that's it. You don't have much rain, and you have more and more people in this country, so more and more people means people need water to live, to eat, to drink, for recreation, for everything. And the more the standard of living is also going up, the more the people need in terms of water. So it's a big problem, and climate change adds up to this problem.
In what way?
So, for example,
In what way does it add to the problem?
one of the issues is sea level rise. So with the climate change, we will see a rise of the sea level. It's difficult to tell how high it will be. The figures range from, for the delta, you know, 0.5 meter, 1 meter, 2 meter. Nobody knows exactly, but it's clear that if the sea level rises and there is no protection for the coastal zone, then the salt water will come into the delta, and this will destroy the fertile land. So that is one of the big issues. And
Any solutions offered for this?
There is a project from Germany that's supporting Egypt in you know, working on the coastal zone, basically building some protection for the coast, there, like walls, but that's only part of the solution. I mean, the easiest answer to this would be everybody needs to work on reducing emissions. So because the less emissions that you have, the less likely the sea level will rise. So one is, you know, prepare the coastal zones so that you can stop this rise of the sea level. Another thing is droughts. The warmer it gets, the more water you need, and you need more intelligent irrigation solutions for the crops.
So you were discussing the quantitative and qualitative problems, not only talking about quantity of the water. So more solutions about this. I mean, can these dams only help, or because when we talk about the emissions, for example, reducing emissions, let's talk frankly, this will not take place just like this, because it has to do with the awareness of people, and it needs a lot of time to work on it, and you cannot just solve it like this. We need some other more solutions to take place parallel till we promote the awareness among people.
I mean, there are, as in other fields, there are, win-win situations or win-win solutions, things that you can do because they make sense economically, they make sense in terms of development, and they will help to combat climate change. And these are the solutions I think Egypt should focus on. We just give you one example, the pumps for agriculture. I'm not an expert, but what I learned is that in Egypt, if you want to irrigate your fields, you need to get the water from the Nile up to the fields, so you have pumps going on there. And these pumps are running on diesel. And this is also how you see the connection with energy. With diesel shortage, you get a problem with these pumps. If the pumps are not working, then you have a problem with the food you're producing. So, for example, switching these pumps to renewable energy would, on the one hand, make sure that you have a stable supply in terms of fuel for these pumps, and also you're polluting less. So that's one of the practical solutions. In terms of quality, it's very simple. The cleaner your water is, the more times you can use it. So if water is a scarce resource, it's better to use it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. But then you need clean water, of course. If you can, the quality to drink the water does not have to be the same quality as for irrigating the land. So if the water is cleared on the way, it can be used several times, and there is a lot to do, a lot of work to do. There's a lot of pollution in the Nile and in the canals from factories, but also from households, and this is a big also affecting the health of the population. The good news is from Germany. We also had in GDR the Elbe, which is close to where I come from in Germany. It was very polluted in terms of GDR times, because they also let all the pollutants go into the water from the factories, and we needed just 2 or 3 years, stopping these dirty factories, installing filters, and then the river quickly recovered. So it's also for the Nile, if you really take bold action, clean the water that's going into the Nile.
But who will take these actions? Who will take these actions?
Who will take this action?
You are talking about solutions, yes, okay. Who is going to do all this? I mean, the dam, for example, these things.
I mean, first of all, it's Egypt that has to do this.
Yes, I know.
This is clear. We are helping.
But who is going to start? Who is going to take the initiative? Because it is something urgent, and I don't know who's going to take the reaction.
I think we had the first assistant minister of the Ministry for Irrigation and Water Resources there, and he has been very clear, very open, and he said, we know all the problems, we know all the solutions.
We always know the solution.
It's not that there is some rocket science research that needs to be done. The solutions are on the table. It's a question of institutional political will. When, for example, you have 2 ministries dealing with water, plus an agricultural ministry, plus other ministries that are also involved in this. So there is a question of coordination amongst all these institutional players from the government. And then, of course, the other question is the people themselves also. You still see in Cairo, you see people just watering the street like this, and this is because water is not regarded as a scarce resource by a lot of people. So in Germany that took time also, but once people realize that they are polluting nobody wants to pollute his own neighborhood, right? You don't want to pollute the place directly where it will affect yourself.
Well, any efforts have to go in parallel with the, awareness campaigns to the people, of course.
Awareness campaign is one thing. Price is also an issue. Usually you would say in a capitalist country, price is the best incentive, right? if things cost, or that's the mentality in Germany also. If something is for free, that's worth nothing. So why should I care? So, but it's the same issue as with subsidies also. On the one hand, it's very important to target the people who are really in need. You cannot impose a high price on water on people that don't have any money. On the other hand, you have to put the incentives right. So have a more intelligent way to support those people who really need the money, but send a clear price signal that water is not for free.
Okay. If we want to go to the core of the problem of water here in Egypt, is it about the availability of water resources or about water management?
I think it's both. It's clearly if climate change goes on as it's forecasted, if there's not really strong action taken internationally, if we just continue like this pessimistic scenario, and the population is growing as predicted, then clearly you're running out of water. You need to get some more water. Like, for example, from desalination. That's one of the promising technologies. So far it's yet still expensive, but the science is going on in this, and you can also use renewable energies to do this. So one part is definitely get more water. So desalinate, for example, the seawater and get fresh water out of this. But on the other hand, before you can get to this, I think the first step is manage what you have. Hedge the precious resources that you have in this country. For example, the assistant minister, he said, I'm not sure how much this is enforced, but he said at least that they took a decision in the government a year ago that there will be no new factories installed next to the Nile. That is, you have to have 50 kilometers away because, you know, and also he said we will not give any more water from the Nile to residential areas somewhere outside that are still tapping into this precious resources. So I think water management is the priority issue, but even with perfect management, at some point you will need more water resources, because you cannot live without water, right? It's nothing you can substitute by something else.
So what is next? I mean, after this session has been ended and you talked about the problem of the water in general, whether we are talking about quantitative or qualitative, what is next?
In terms of water?
Both. Of course, there is going to be another topic to be discussed, but again, regarding the same issue, you offered solutions and then you close the file and move on to something else, or how things work?
I mean, there is, for example, we had the KfW, the German Development Bank, was sitting with us on the panel, and their work with the ministries here is going on.
So you did everything for the ministries, for example, and then you move on to another issue?
From Cairo Climate Talks, we move on to another issue. But the people who are involved in this, they are doing some work. You know, there is some capacity building going on. There is some consulting going on. There is some construction going on that is financed by the German side. We have, there will be also a new conference of scientists coming in. There are new corporations that have been agreed on between universities in Germany, in Egypt, that will look at specific technical issues of wastewater reuse, on health issues in the water, how you can improve these issues. So this is going on, but this will not be our job anymore. We have facilitated this, we have highlighted the problem, and then we will try to move to something else, because there are so much other issues. The next one will be energy subsidies. So this will be also a very interesting and I think a tough issue.
Okay. In your last discussions about water resources, you did not tackle the political dimension of the problem, or did you? I mean, regarding attempts by some Nile Basin countries to alter Egypt's Nile quota to Egypt and Sudan's Nile quota, you did not tackle these issues, right?
It came up in the discussion. Some people mentioned this. I know it's a very highly sensitive issue, and I'm not in a position to say who is right or wrong on this. But what you can clearly say is water is a transboundary issue. You know, this is logic. If you have various countries sitting on one river, they have to come to grips together, and this is of course very crucial for Egypt, that there is a good understanding and a good cooperation with these countries. If not, you have a big problem. But from what I understand from the Ministry of Irrigation is that there is a lot of going on of negotiations, and also of Egypt trying to help these countries to use their resources better, so they don't have to take more water out of the Nile. So I would not say that development in Sudan or development in Ethiopia is bad for Egypt. This is not the case, and these countries also have a right to develop. That's clear, but you have to work together. We have the same in Europe. We have the Rhine or the Donau, which are rivers that are traveling through whole Europe, and all the countries who are sitting on this river sit together in commissions and negotiate and talk together. Because if not, it's not possible. Because we will always affect the others that are downstream. Usually, if you're upstream, it's always better, right? You can take the water, and then the rest has to deal with what comes up at the end.
Right. At the end, Dr. Martin Bergfelder, the head of science department, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to a break, and we'll be back.